I guess not yet because I'm not seeing it. All right, there you go. So give me one hot second, you guys. There's that, and then I'm gonna put a couple. Oh wow, I can't do images on these comments. I forgot. Well, that sucks balls. Hey, Ryan. Sorry, I'm doing some. Do it as a. Oh yeah, no. I mean, I'm not going to do a separate post, but that's fine. You're going to eventually put the link up. I thought I would be able to put up just the covers or whatever, but that's not. It doesn't look like that's happening. I hadn't really looked into it. All right. Hey everyone, you guys. So the reason I put a couple of those things up, which hopefully she'll pin, is just to show some of my past, like where I began. I began as a poet like 30 years ago, doing slam poetry, which is kind of like you competed in bars with original poetry, time limits, judges for like cash prizes or free drinks or whatever the fuck it was. Hey, and then so I put a sample of that, and then I did. I'm a filmmaker, so I put like the very first short film I ever directed, like 11, 12 years ago. Hey everyone. And then I'm working on. I started writing lit RPG a little over a year ago. Like August was a year, I think. My first book came out, which is Blood Brothers, and the first book of that was The Bones of Our Fathers. That has 5 books out, and then I started a new series called The Dream. Book 1 of that is out for that, called The Warhounds, and then I'm working on book 2. The book 2 should be out in a few weeks, about 3 weeks probably. And then the Audible for book 5 of Blood Brothers, Obsidian Forest, and the Audible for book 1, The Warhounds, should be out in about a month. So there's that. Yeah, sounds like sumo poetry. And then what else? And then I'm starting a new series. As soon as I finish this, I'm starting book 1 of a new series that is called Embers and Ash, and it's going to be a grimdark superhero lit RPG. The main MC is her name is Arch, an African American woman with the powers of telekinesis. But I'm actually meeting with Ryan on Monday, and we're going to do a deep dive, crunchy system. He's going to help me define and create it all and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be a fun time. It's going to be a good time. Yeah, and slam poetry. So basically, slam poetry is where I started. And slam poetry, like in 1990 or something, 91. You would perform in bars, and they would pick 5 people out of the audience to be the judge, and then high score, low score would be, and they were dropped, and then the middle 3 would be added, and you were judged on performance and writing, and so it was a good trial by fire because you literally had to capture the entire audience of drunken people with just doing poetry, and you had a time limit. It had to be like 3 minutes and 10 seconds or less. It had to be original. And then there'd be a second round, like half the field would be cut after the first round, and then there'd be a second round, and the scores were cumulative, and you do shit like win cash or win tickets for free drinks or whatever it was. So that was like my introduction into the whole creative world, was doing slam poetry. And then eventually that led to me starting to write lyrics. And then I was the singer-songwriter of a band in Seattle for almost a decade, blues rock. And then that led to film and me moving to LA and working for 8 years as a stand-in or background extra on pretty much any TV show and film that's shot in LA for 8 years. While I shot my own films. I've shot like 16 short films or something like that, and I was writing film. And then I think I've told this story to a few people. Well, I put a poem up above, Rach, but yeah, I still remember poems. Let me think of one. Let me think of one. I got a pocket full of crumbs and Bob teeth with which to eat. The sunshine pressed against my back. A hand with 4 jokers and 1 jack. I got Mrs. Clown my back pocket like it's a yellow brick road, like it's a little kid picking his nose with a pocket full of toads. I'm waiting for the jazz, tip my tongue, crawl on my teeth, hit the note that hungers me to eat. Now my feet by themselves wander a straight line, but when alley swing blues makes me move, croon like some crazy street cat meow. Like that's where it's at. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. 2 pinches of hot, overblown like a fat rat. Because you see, I got a pocket full of crumbs and Bob teeth which to eat. Sunshine pressed against my back. A hand with 4 jokers and 1 jack. I got dreams, teasing lips. I got a hip that tends to sway. I got an eye that trumps, there you go. Good enough. I am. Dude, you missed your tribute, Brian. We just did an entire Grim Dark panel. There was a tribute to your Grim Dark novel. We even had Kaylin reading from it. It was interesting. Yeah, I mean, that's what I did, Reg, way back when. And then I did songs, so like music. Now we move and slide and floor our feet. We chuck and jive to the hit of the beat. And when we grind to the crack of the blow, we wiggle our asses and we start the show. She wore a dress just for night, cut real short and wrapped up tight. Walking the streets on the city of lights, made men drool and started fights. So there I was, shooting some pool when she walked in and took me to school. Now I used to think I was pretty cool, boy, the shake of her hips, I play the fool. I said, what? What did you say? I said, what? What did you say? I said, what? There you go. And somehow, Brian, Rachel was voted the Legion's most favorite Irish author. It was, she kind of overtook you, man. I don't know what happened. But it's funny. And then Facebook user, without going to Facebook, I don't know who that is, but good morning. So then I went from music, then I went into LA. We talked about that. So I spent 8 years pretty much literally from working on The Mentalist to any show, Dexter to Transformers to, being back. That's really what I did nonstop. Strong. So I've been reading voraciously since I was like literally 5. I was a loner as a kid. I played a lot of sports, played basketball, football, baseball. I was one of the better people on the team, but I didn't relate to anyone. I thought they were all kind of Neanderthalish. So literally I was in my room a lot by myself, always a loner, creating worlds, always creating worlds. Now, part of that was there was always yelling and anger and all that shit going on in my household. But to me, I value it because it's what made me who I am. It's what made me want to be in my room with the door shut, creating worlds to kind of tune it all out. And then I graduated. I remember immediately when I was 5, I started reading those Dungeons and Dragons, Choose Your Own Adventure, where you would go, if you want to become a wizard, go to page 83. If you want to be a fighter, go to page 46 or whatever that was. And then I started just voraciously reading and I still do it to this day, 2 or 3 books a week since I was like 5. But then I went from action figures to I found Dungeons and Dragons and video games. I remember Dungeons and Dragons. Like I said, I didn't really have a lot of friends, so I would always I'd buy Dungeons or a bunch of role-playing systems, Palladium, Rift, Warhammer, all that stuff. And I would read the entire world mythos. I would read everything about the whole world that was created. I'd make like 30 characters, and then I'd run all these stories in my head with plot and overplot and underplots. And then when I got bored of that system, I'd buy the next one, Palladium or Zanzibar, or, whatever it was. And I'd do the same thing over and over again. And then video games were big for me. And then so when I was 18, my mom kept asking me to what am I going to do with my life? What am I going to do with my life? What am I going to do with my life? And I was at a stoplight driving. And what I used to do back then is I literally had the book I was reading on the steering wheel while I was at a red light reading. And I was like, oh, that's what I want to do, writing. So I first created this giant world that I never did anything in. But while I was doing that, I started keeping like a journal. And then I immediately, for some reason, just started writing poetic stuff. And then I found out that there was things called open mics, and this is before internet and all of that stuff really blew up. So I started hitting open mics and doing poetry, and then that led to music, and then that led to film. And then a little over a year ago, though, the reason I started finally writing novels is a little over a year ago, I was writing my 6th feature film script. And I was like, what the fuck am I doing? I haven't even been able to find funding for my other 5 feature film scripts. So like, why the fuck am I writing another one? Why am I not just doing something that actually make me money? And that's when I had that epiphany. I'm like, man, I need to write novels, because at least that doesn't rely on other people like film does. And I can just start writing novels and actually put them out and actually have some kind of income coming in from writing. So that's what led me. And I had already, about a year before that, started getting into lit RPG. I read Dragon Mage, and I read Aileron stuff. And then I read quite a few, Eden's Gate and all of that stuff. And so that was what I decided I wanted to write. And then that first series came out. I wrote it in I wrote the first book in 5 weeks or something like that on Royal Road. And then now I have 5 out for that. And then the second series, and then my next series, it's interesting. They're both based on a feature film script that I started and never finished. So the dream was based on this feature film script that I started, got about 20 pages in, and it was based on kind of Warhammer meets Rifts MMO. Warhammer 40K meets Rifts MMO. And yeah, but it was only 200 and something pages, man. So it's a lot of my books are only about 70, 75. I'm going to try to 75K. So I'm going to try on this new series. As soon as I finish book 2 of York, I'm going to try to hit about 90, 95K on that, the Embers and Ash. But we'll see. Any other questions while I'm an open book, man. You can ask whatever you want. I don't think I saw any other questions. Hiya, Sharon. I just saw that. What do I use normally as my creative process to come up with these new worlds? I'm one of those people, I've never had a writer's block or anything in my life. I have to more stop coming up with ideas than ever had an issue with creating world. I mean, I've been doing that. I think that I talked about it. I've been doing that since that was my go-to to get through childhood, was to create world after world after world, or read world after world after world. So I've never had any block. I've had writer's laziness where I don't feel like writing, but and I literally, I seriously, when I was writing film, I had to stop coming up with ideas on film so I could actually literally get shit written. No, I'm going to stay in lit RPG as far as my novel. I got a lot of stuff going, you guys. So I still am pursuing my film stuff. I still have 5 feature film scripts that someday I want to shoot. I have a video game based on one of those feature film scripts. It's a VN coming out on Steam in February that's been worked on for 3 years, called The Crown of Thorns. It's an adult visual novel game. It's kind of a prequel to a feature film script of mine called Blade and Blood, which was, I wrote that feature script based on a short film of mine that won some awards called Blade and Blood. My favorite video game, wow. I have a ton of them. Way back in the day was City of Heroes. I used to love City of Heroes. It came back out now, but you know how the whole nostalgia thing goes. It was amazing back then, but the graphics are kind of now. And then I like RPGs and MMOs, though, are my main type of game I like playing. I don't have time to play BG3 now, but I'm playing BG3, but I'm stuck in Act 2 forever because literally between my normal job and writing, I have literally no time. Do you plan and put out all your books? I keep writing on. No, someday, hopefully. And then let me see. Favorite video game answer that. Have you ever wished to write a sub story of a book you read? Have you ever? No. You mean write like fan fiction? Not really. That's their world. Do you ever consider doing other storylines within worlds you've already built to expand the universe? Maybe someday, Lola. Maybe someday other people could do that if the world got big enough. There's certainly I try to make the world big enough that you could do that. Like try to create the world enough that you could play in it. Same thing when I did even short films. My always thing when I'm talking to young filmmakers was if you're even doing a short, write the short as if it's a part of something much bigger. So even when I was doing my short films, I always wrote the short film as if it was a scene or an excerpt from something much larger. I always say that for multiple reasons, but the main one was if producers look at your shit and they envision that it's part of something bigger, they're more apt to want to move you into a feature realm. But and this is the thing that I tell filmmakers and writers as well. The number one rule for me is don't ever break immersion. I think Rach and us were talking about it in that panel last. Is don't ever do things that break immersion for your. That's the number one rule. Don't do anything that breaks immersion for your reader or watcher if you're talking film, because it's very hard to regain your audience or your reader once you do that. Have your MC have a fucking halberd and then you don't understand what a halberd is and you literally have them, you describe all the scenes as if they're fighting with a pike or a lucerne hammer because you don't have a fucking clue what a halberd is. Sorry, it's an inside joke off of a panel when we were talking about fight scenes. There was an author I read that literally used a halberd as a weapon, but literally had no clue what a halberd was. He was talking about like, I wish I had an axe because I can't do a chopping motion with a halberd, which is literally an axe face on the front. And he kept talking as if he was constantly poking with it or using it for blunt damage. And I'm like, dude, what halberd? So I think what he meant was a lucerne hammer, which would do all the things he was saying it did, but it's not a fucking halberd. Any other questions you guys have? I'm not sure where the time is. Probably a few minutes. Well, come on, in lit RPG, dude, everyone becomes super strong, so you can swing pole arms around like they're fucking normal weapons. Like in real life, most of those weapons were meant for infantry to use against mounted. So Disco Ball Sumo Thong Forever. Yeah, that's a joke. Yeah. So I wrote a short film. I still have never shot it, but I wrote a short film several years ago that I just thought was hilarious. It was called Sumo or Speed Dating Sumo Thong Disco Dancing Style. And it was a short film about this like a speed dating panel, you know, and it was all these over the top characters like stuck up bitch, gold digger, nerdy guy, librarian dominatrix, whatever. And this very effeminate, over dramatic guy was hosting it, and he was like, "Oh, we're about to start, but we're missing one man. We'll give him another minute." And then all of a sudden, in comes this huge, overweight dude with disco glasses, disco hat, a big fur jacket. And as soon as he arrives, a spotlight hits him. And he's just over the top character. And he's like, "We can start." And then he throws off the jacket. A disco ball appears above his head. Spotlight goes on him. And he's this really overweight dude in a sumo thong. And he starts dancing. It's funny. I was this kid and all I got for a weapon was a toothpick. Hey, if you're John Wick, you could do a lot with a toothpick. Because you'd have to because short films cost money. I mean, most of my short films, I had at least I had investors for at least 800 a grand or something like that, 1,200, which is nothing, which is why I always had issues with shooting my short films because I was working on no time, barely any budget. And then you have to find an actor that could pull that off. I'd have to find a 300-pound dude that not only could wear a sumo thong, but was a good enough actor and could do the dances and all that stuff. It's a lot to go into shooting even a short film, right? Yeah, I just thought it was a funny image to write it as a lit RPG, and I just think it's a funny image altogether. A giant 300-pound dude in a sumo thong with a disco ball. I just think it's funny. So yes, we've been making a lot of humor about the it should be a lit RPG. Hey Angel, how are you? So what you usually find when you do those? Do what? James, you have to elaborate. I'm not sure what you're asking. Um but any other questions, you guys? Like I said, I'm sure Geneva will throw up a link to my author page. There is 2 books up there that are not lit RPG or actually 3 books. One, it has 4 of my feature film scripts all in it. My Western, my sci-fi, my post-apocalyptic, and my female-driven mafia film. And then 2 of them are collected works of all the decades of poetry and lyrics. They're each like 800 pages, poetry, lyrics, and short film stuff. I'd read the shit out of that. Oh, the lit RPG, speed dancing, it would have to be like a novella. I don't know how far you could go with that shit. Of all your books, what's your favorite you've written? I don't know. I mean, they're stories. So I mean, I think they're all there. And I'm big on not having fat. So literally, I try to do my best, whether it's film or story, to keep because I'm very ADHD, to keep it very kinetic movement, hitting, constantly, whether it be emotions or fights or actions or whatever it is, to keep it constantly short, tight, concise. I like all the stuff I've written. Otherwise, I wouldn't write it. But I'm gonna. I still owe 4 more books on the first series. I owe after I finish this book 2 of this one, I owe 4 more on that, and then my next series. I'm going to start off with a trilogy because I'm actually submitting it to a publisher. The superhero, grimdark superhero lit RPG, the one I'm going to start as soon as I finish here. But I'm going to keep it to 3 for right now until we see how it goes and whether publisher picks it up or whatever it is. But then I'm going to just juggle all 3 and then go, like if this next series gets picked up by a publisher and it's doing well, then obviously I'll focus on that because my commitment will be to that publisher. But Legion Cock, yeah. Legionnaire Sergeant Warcock. But yeah, so that's my story, and I'm sticking to it, man. And yes, I probably should have prefaced this. Glasscock is not a pen name; it is my real name, and I don't write harem. There's actually a Glasscock County in Texas. I think it's either Welsh or Southern Scotland is where the name originally comes from. But as far as I know, Welsh actually have a lot of Scottish background because that was where England finally conquered Scotland by literally taking a bunch of Scottish clan chiefs and giving them land, mostly in Wales, and moving them there, and then taking English lords and moving them to Scotland. And that was basically how they ended up, because they would conquer Scotland, and Scotland would quit fucking with each other and then kick English ass, and then English had to come back and keep doing that. But anyway, are we almost done here, Geneva? 5 more minutes. You got 5 more minutes of Viva la Glasscock. Any other questions? Kyle, what are you writing? Oh, Jazz. Yeah, I don't put pressure on people, man. Even if I'm submitting to a publisher, I don't put pressure on people for anything. You almost never see me ask people to read my books or any of that shit, man. Like, I mean, I put promos up, definitely. I mean, I do marketing, but I don't individually put that kind of pressure on people I know, man. I don't believe in it. People want to read my stuff, lovely. But yeah. But I don't I'm not a big a person that thinks people owe me anything. You know what I mean? I'd rather have your friendship than worry about you stressing on whether I'm going to ask you for something. That's not really my MO. People are trying to explain to me in my new home here, the Lit RPG, and it's the first time I've actually felt somewhat at home that I can be me unfiltered. Me and Geneva were talking about this, but that I like giving a lot. I like supporting people. I like doing all that, but I need to work on being able to accept some of that back. Dude, I was born with the name Glasscock. I had to learn at an early age to just be an open, and it's just the way I am, man. I'm an open book, man. I'll talk about anything in under the sun. And I'm very forthright with who I am and what I think and what I believe and what I like or I don't like. Or it saves a lot of issues and stress and miscommunication. But anyway, I'm gonna get going though. But I appreciate all the love and I thank you so much. Lit RBG has literally become a second home for me. And for the first time in my life, my 52 years of life, that's how old I am, 52. First time in my 52 years of life, I feel like I finally found a home. So that means a lot to me. I'm not the best at emotive expression in that realm, but it means a lot to me. Anyway, beautiful blessings. Love you all. You can cut it, Geneva.